Hello and welcome back to my channel. So a few weeks ago I uploaded a video on a bunch of books that I got when I went to a secondhand book sale. And I basically said that in that video, if people are interested, I would do a whole video on just some of my favorite books that I've read mostly in the past 12 months, as well as some just all-time favorites that I had. And so if you haven't been here before, this is not a typical video that I do. I'm just testing things out and seeing what people want. But basically I get comments all the time on my thrifted books. So there's a whole wall of thrifted books behind me, as well as a whole wall this way that you can't see. And my husband and I just love reading, and I said that I would basically post a video on some favorites of mine, and then share them with you so you can either, one, get good ideas for books to give people as gifts in the upcoming Christmas holidays, or just good books for yourself to read if you're looking for new suggestions. So I'm going to dive straight in with Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. This book definitely was a page turner. So it's a whole concept of basically someone getting into some sort of accident, and you can get amnesia, as you know, from accidents, and the whole book is about how you know what you know. So I like psychological thrillers, and this book is basically questioning the whole, if someone told you that, you know, that they're your husband, that this is your life, that these are your friends, that this is your world. It's kind of a whole book about questioning things that we take for granted every single day. And so it's someone's journey following an accident and what she believes and then what she no longer believes. And so I obviously don't want to give away any spoilers, but this one was definitely a page turner, and I actually just recently discovered that it was turned into a movie. And I watched the movie, and that was also relatively well done as well. And so I personally, there are very few movies that I love as much as the book. I definitely just think that you go into a whole other world in the book, but there's a few exceptions to that rule, like Harry Potter. I love the books, definitely love the movies. A Walk to Remember by Nicholas Sparks. I loved that movie. So there are a few times where I do love the movie as much as the book. This one, I definitely just love reading this book. So Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. Then there are these two classic favorites of mine. So they're Jodi Picoult books, and so there's My Sister's Keeper, which was also made into a book, and 19 Minutes. This one is, all of Jodi Picoult books are, they tend to have some sort of like ethical dilemma in them, and this book, My Sister's Keeper, is basically at what point should someone essentially have a say over their own body. So this story is about a little girl who has a little sister that is born intentionally. So the little girl has a series of medical problems, and so the youngest little girl is intentionally genetically chosen to be basically what was initially supposed to be a one-time donor for the child, but then becomes a donor throughout her life. So she basically is treated throughout her life as essentially the missing parts donor for anything that her older sister needs. And so the story is about essentially, you know, when does one go too far to save another child? At what point is being a donor abuse of a child if they're repeatedly used as a donor? And what kind of legal action can someone take if they're put in that kind of position? So it sounds like a really horrible summary, but I just desperately don't want to give anything away, especially because I can say that My Sister's Keeper book does have a different ending in the movie, and I much prefer the book. So definitely recommend you read this one. This one it was the very first book of Jodi Picoult that I ever read, and I've loved her books ever since. So definitely recommend this one. Now this one, I love anything about making people see things from another perspective. So 19 Minutes is this beautifully written story about bullying, I think would be the main thing I would say about this. But basically understanding that everyone is going through something, that everyone has a story to tell, and that there really is a reason why everyone should be kind to everyone else, because you truly never know what anyone's going through. You truly never know. Particularly, I think the most devastating part I took away from this book is that there are so many stories, particularly in the US, because I do tend to hear more in the news about their gun violence stories, but I think the part that's most devastating to me is, I mean, of course there's so many devastating points to any shooting story, but there is shooting stories where you hear about the victims, you hear about the horrific things that the shooter did. But one thing that really always gets me with those stories are the parents of the shooter. Because I can only imagine, and obviously there are various reasons as to why various shooters take this, the steps that they do, and then get that title, the shooter. But for parents, I have to admit, I've read so many heartbreaking stories, real stories, so parents posting on various forums where they talk about just the devastating state of our mental health system, and essentially how some of them actually did see it coming and saw that there was a serious problem, that their son or daughter needed serious intervention, but because other than saying to a doctor, there's something wrong with my kid, it's so hard to explain to someone why you think that your child is a risk to others, and to be put in that position as a parent, I just think that's a really devastating story. And then further from that, if you are, part of a horrific scenario where there's a shooting at your child's school, and then you find out that you're the parent of the shooter, the grief process for them, I've seen TED Talks on this and things like that. It's phenomenal. I mean, trying to reconcile the grief of your child and what they did to others with the own loss and own devastation that you're going through, and the stigma that will follow you around for the rest of your life. You will be the parent of that shooter, of that child that needed serious help and maybe didn't get it, or didn't get it in time. So anyways, this book has really, really stayed with me. I just think that it's a really powerful book that honestly I think should be required reading in schools. I just think it was just so brilliantly done. I've read this so many times, so I highly recommend Jodi Picoult's 19 Minutes. Alright, so that was a really serious note. But anyways, I'm really passionate about books. And so next, I found these two on a cruise that I went early this year. So on cruise ships, they have kind of a library for people to take books and read, and they also have a take and leave section of most libraries on cruise ships, where obviously tons of people bring books on their trip and then they can dump them, partially for weight purposes, but also so that they can keep trading in books. So I traded in the books that I brought on my cruise for these ones, and these books were so good. So this one is called When's Happy Hour, and it's by Betches. So I've never heard of this company before, Betches, but this book was freaking hilarious. So I'm not into nonfiction. I don't generally ever pick up books, but I have to admit, even within a few pages in, I was like, what is this? This is the funniest thing I've ever read. So basically, it's, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's kind of like a self-help book told by your best friend. It's kind of like the person who will speak, in a real way to you, someone who will say all the things that everybody is thinking, someone who's just like, you know what, if you want to get your crap together, get your crap together. Just do it. Here's what you're doing wrong. Here's how you can do something different. So I'm normally not a self-help nonfiction kind of girl, but this book is so funny. so funny. So When's Happy Hour was a unexpected find, and I just find myself reading through it sometimes, and it's just like, there's just really, every page seems to have some sort of hilarious line that I just wish I could sit there and take notes on and be like, how can you put this much funny into one book? So if you need a good laugh, When's Happy Hour was pretty freaking hilarious. Then This one was an unexpected love story that just took me completely by surprise. So it's called What If It's Us? And it's by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silverella. But basically, it's told from the point of view of these two guys who fall in love in New York City, and it is so beautifully written. So I very rarely find books that I think tell the story of your first love well, because I had a very epic first love, and there are books that really get close in terms of how intense it was, how much you think about everything, how much you question absolutely everything that you're doing, and this book was just so well done. I read it, so I only went on that cruise May of this year, and I've read this book about 5 times this year. It just was so good, so I read it about 3 times on the cruise, and then twice since. It just, for some reason, it just brings a smile to my face. It's such a beautiful, it's like someone was me as a kid writing this story. I'm actually sad that I didn't write this story. But like, I think like these characters, and it's just so cute watching my teenage self fall back in love again. So I absolutely love this. So if you want a story about first love between these two guys who are just trying to work things out, everything is new, it's awkward to talk to people about, and you don't know what to take as a sign, you don't know what to take as, flirting, and it's just so, that first love where you just have no idea if the other person feels the same way, or if you're imagining all these signs, or if you're taking it too far. That is me. So, I love this book, What If It's Us? Definitely recommend. Alright, we are halfway through. The next one is a book that came in as a series, so I can never remember which one's first. I think it might be Broken and then Sticks and Stones. But anyways, this is an author called Ilsa Evans. And for those of you who don't know, I'm a lawyer for a living. So I deal with very, very sad stories. I'm a family lawyer. I work with Parent Protection. And essentially, I just hear and see devastating things every single day. It's a tough job. This book is written from the perspective of a survivor of domestic violence. So it's her experience of the family court system in Australia. It's her experience of living with an abuser. It's her experience of debating how to get out of that situation. And it was just very, very well written, and I think intriguing for me, particularly for what I do for a living, and particularly since I work in the Australian family law system, and this was written per someone going through the Australian family law system. But it was just a heartbreaking fictional story, because this is so many people's story. This could very easily be many people's story. And I have no doubt has many slivers of truth to it. So, like I said, Sticks and Stones and Broken, really excellent reads. Alright, then I have Lisa Genova. So Lisa Genova, I love a lot of her books. You might remember her from Still Alice, also a great book, also behind me. But this one is called Left Neglected, and I had never heard of Left Neglect. So this is a story about someone who is in an accident and basically suffers from left neglect, where just like you and I can't see, things behind us. Like, we just understand that's a concept. We cannot see anything behind us unless we go, like, we're aware that there's stuff behind us, but we're aware that we can't see what's behind us. Left Neglect is this fascinating book from the perspective of someone who's suffering from it, where their mind can't comprehend that there's a left. So it was so intriguing to read it. It was so well written, as is everything that Lisa Genova writes. Still Alice was also heartbreaking. Still Alice was the perspective of someone suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia. And Left Neglect, it was just this fascinating concept of someone whose mind no longer accepts that there's a left. And so what she sees is here because to her, there is stuff over here and she understands that, but there is no left to her. So to her, it's not that she simply needs to look left. There is no left. So it's just so well written. Like the fact that Lisa Genova can write with such conviction about how silly it would be for someone to say, you know, just look behind you without turning your head. Of course you can't. And so to tell someone with left neglect, just look to the left, to them, of course they can't. So it was just an interesting story of, you know, the recovery that goes along with that, the things that we take for granted in terms of if we can't see left, how that could affect certain things, like driving, like doing everyday activities and things that we, yeah, like I said, we take for granted, and how having no left can really, well, impact you. Like it's just, it impacts everything. If you all of a sudden don't have a part of your vision, that would obviously impact you. But if you no longer have a concept of left, that is a whole other story. So it's another story in Lisa Genova's Left Neglected. So really, really love this book. Definitely recommend it. Alright, and then this video is getting really long, so I'm just going to pick one more, and it's going to be this one. Alright, so this one is called Behind Closed Doors, and so I kept seeing it all year long at airports in the bestseller sections when I was looking for books to read, and this one is about how you never truly know what's going on with someone else. So it is so well written. It is completely suspenseful. I read it in an afternoon. Well, I read all my books in an afternoon, but I read this one in like an hour. So it's, how many pages are you? 350 pages, and basically it's the story of, you know, these idyllic couples that hang out with each other, and you never realize what you don't know until you find out what you don't know, and the truth is shocking. And so all I'll say is that this is a story about someone's life whose life looks idyllic and turns out it is the wild opposite, that someone who just looks put together and thin may have a whole other reason and basis for why they have to look put together and thin, that, you know, someone's mini mansion from the outside may not be what it's like from the inside, that how people treat others when they present themselves in public may be vastly different from how they present in private. I can't say more because this book was truly so shocking that anything I say will give it away. So Behind Closed Doors, it is utterly fantastic, and it's by B.A. Paris. So I'll end this book haul with that, but like I said, all these books I either got for free or thrifted for like $2 or $3. So this is how I fuel my book addiction. There's nothing like having the actual physical book. When I'm reading, I tried to do the whole Kindle thing and just haven't been able to convert. But basically that's how I go through so many books, because I go through like a book a day. So my husband and I are both very intense book readers. And so this whole wall and this whole wall that you can't see are all of these amazing stories that we just read over and over. So, and then we constantly get rid of a bunch and get new ones. So it's a constant library cycle. I think the only thing that could make us happier is if my husband and I built a new house and had like a Beauty and the Beast type library where you have like the shelf that, you know, goes around the whole room and you can just climb to all the different parts of your library and dance around like they do in the Beauty and the Beast. That is my ideal. So thank you so much for watching, and if this was interesting to you, or if you want me to review certain books, or if there's books that you can see here that you want me to talk about, I've got favorite authors up here like Harry Potter books, Twilight series, Nicholas Sparks, Jodi Picoult, as I said before. Just a variety of people up there. So if there's certain books that intrigue you, or books that you want me to read and then talk about them, even though I can't really talk about them because I'm just so mindful. I do not like when people give spoilers, so all I can do is tell you if something was a page turner or not and why I felt like it was a page turner. So anyways, I appreciate that books are a very personal thing and not everyone likes the same kind of thing, but these were my favorites and I hope some of them become your favorites, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!